Right, so the UFC Lightweight division is in a little bit of a shambles right now, so I'm making this video today to break down every single fight I need to see made next in that UFC 155-pound Lightweight division next moving forward. I think this is the perfect breakdown of every fight to make next in that division, and I feel like it makes every single person happy other than Rafael dos Anjos. I'm sorry, you're going to have to take the L here so my system works. I'm going to go through the whole division, matching up everyone with whoever they're supposed to take on next, starting with the top, moving down and even including some unranked guys as well, because there's a lot of talent outside of those rankings in the lightweight division as well. Starting with, though, the top four right now is in a little bit of a situation. I kind of feel like Khabib is definitely not going to be coming back now that McGregor lost to Poirier in the rematch, and I feel like we know that Poirier has now earned his chance to fight for a title. I know Dustin Poirier is coming out and saying things like, just make Oliveira versus Chandler for the belt, and I'll fight Nate Diaz. That's just not going to happen right now. I feel like right now, more than ever, we need to respect the rankings of the lightweight division and get the people to the top that deserve to be at the top of the division. I don't think Nate Diaz has earned a shot against the number one guy in the lightweight division right now, Dustin Poirier. You've got Chandler calling out everyone in the top four for a fight, and why not? I actually kind of really like Chandler recently, because even though he's saying a whole bunch of stuff, everything Chandler says is true, and I like that about Michael Chandler, and he's calling out everyone. Charles Oliveira turned down Chandler at 258 because he wants to fight for a belt. I feel like I've sorted out the top four. We need a guy who hasn't been beaten by Khabib to take on a guy who has been beaten by Khabib, to kind of remove the memory of Khabib's looming figure over the lightweight division as best we can. I'm not going to do Dustin Poirier versus Justin Gaethje right now. I need to see Dustin Poirier versus Charles Oliveira for the world championships, and I need to see Justin Gaethje versus Michael Chandler. Those are the two matchups right now that need to be made in the top four of the division. I need one guy who hasn't lost to Khabib to beat a guy who has lost to Khabib, so he can try and remove this memory of Khabib that's going to be shadowing over the lightweight division for the next few years. Because if Poirier or Gaethje win and stay as champion in the division, they're forever going to be known as the guy for the next few years, or however long they reign for, as the person who lost to Khabib and isn't really the lightweight world champion. It kind of the same situation when Whittaker got the interim belt off of Yoel Romero and then GSP vacated, and Whittaker wasn't really seen as the true champion for a while, and it sort of affected how much he was seen as a champion, and it affected his image overall. So I feel like right now, Dustin Poirier versus Charles Oliveira for the belt, Chandler versus Gaethje, the winner takes on the guy for the belt. I think that's the perfect situation for the top four right now, so we find ourselves moving out of the top four of the division, because I feel like those are the perfect matchups. We don't need to do any more talking about that right now. Outside of the top four, let's handle the 5 to 10 range of the lightweight division. We've got Tony Ferguson, Conor McGregor, Rafael dos Anjos, Dan Hooker, Paul Felder. We've got Nate Diaz looking to make a jump in as well. I feel like this is the bracket of ranking that Nate Diaz can appropriately jump into a new division at, in my opinion. I don't think you can chuck him straight to the top four, so I feel like we need to make. And I know I said originally that Conor McGregor should take on Tony Ferguson next because the storyline is all there, but I kind of disagree with myself here, because I feel like Conor McGregor and Nate Diaz have to be the main or co-main event themselves. And I see 4 names right now. I see Conor McGregor, Tony Ferguson, Dan Hooker, and Nate Diaz. Okay, Felder's in there as well, but he lost to Dan Hooker, so that's why I'm putting Dan Hooker above Felder in this little mix right now. We need Conor McGregor and Nate Diaz to be a main event for Conor McGregor, whoever he's going to be taking on, and he doesn't get that against Dan Hooker. He can do against Tony Ferguson, but if you give him Tony Ferguson, you then give Nate Diaz Dan Hooker, and I don't think Nate Diaz versus Dan Hooker is a great co-main event of a pay-per-view, and Nate Diaz has to be the co-main event or main event of a pay-per-view. You need to make the most out of that name for the UFC. That's exactly what they're going to do, and I don't feel like Dan Hooker's still in that spot in his career to earn the co-main event of a pay-per-view anymore, in my opinion. So I think we need to do Conor McGregor versus Nate Diaz 3. Why not? It's a great trilogy. I know people want to see the Poirier versus McGregor trilogy right now. Stupidity. Let's not make that right now. I feel like we need McGregor to be at least 2 fights removed from that Poirier fight to even consider a trilogy between them, because it was a second round TKO. Are we forgetting this? It wasn't like a draw or a controversial decision. I mean, come on. He lost by second round TKO. He got KO'd basically. It wasn't even a TKO. He got put out by Poirier in the second round. Conor McGregor versus Nate Diaz 3 needs to be made next, and I feel like it actually builds a storyline for an eventual Dustin Poirier trilogy anyway, because you could say McGregor, before the trilogy against Poirier, he needs to overcome another trilogy against Nate Diaz where he's 1-1 and needs to solidify that one first and then move on to a Dustin Poirier trilogy down the line maybe. So I feel like Conor McGregor versus Nate Diaz can headline a pay-per-view in May or June. Not May, McGregor just got KO'd, so June, McGregor got KO'd. I can't get used to that coming out of my mouth. That's crazy. McGregor got KO'd, so we're going to have to wait until June for him to fight Nate Diaz in the main event of a pay-per-view. And I feel like Tony Ferguson versus Dan Hooker, both of their names combined, are a great co-main event. It's a great main event of a fight night, in my opinion. Tony Ferguson versus Dan Hooker, I feel like should be made. Conor McGregor versus Nate Diaz, free the trilogy as well. Both great matchups. Ferguson and Dan Hooker both coming off 2-fight losing streaks. If they lose the next one, there's both the same argument. Have they taken too much damage in their career? Similar situations in their career right now. The loser's really going to be looking at nothing left for them in their career, and the winner's going to go on and stay relevant in that division. So Ferguson versus Dan Hooker. McGregor versus Nate Diaz. Maybe as the main and co-main event of a pay-per-view in June. Who knows? Moving on to another guy in that top 10, Rafael dos Anjos, the only man that is not going to be happy with my system, in my opinion. I'm sorry, RDA. You're just, you're not that interesting compared to the rest of them. I like RDA, and I feel like, honestly, he got a little bit of a layup with Paul Felder taking a fight on 5 days' notice. That was a favour to him. That was a real blessing to RDA, because if he beat Makhachev, he'd probably be ranked, what, number 12, 11, probably above Kevin Lee, so what, number 11 in the lightweight division. He's at number 7 now, because Paul Felder, who was number 5, jumped in on short notice against him and gave him that opportunity. So Rafael dos Anjos has already kind of been blessed enough, in my opinion. So we need to make RDA versus the winner of Ferreira versus Dariush. A little bit anticlimactic, but still the division needs some order. We need to jump up the winner of Ferreira Dariush, because they've earned it. Let's be real, how many wins they need to get in a row, and finishes, and great performances. KOs of the year for Dariush, and Ferreira's been looking good as well recently. I think they need to make the winner of Ferreira Dariush versus RDA, keep the winner active, then we move on outside the top 10 of the lightweight division. We've got names like Ally Quinter. Paul Felder's in the top 10. Ally Quinter versus Paul Felder. Paul Felder versus Ally Quinter. Whatever way you want to lay it out, that's a great fight. Main card of a pay-per-view. Co-main event of a fight night. I don't think it's quite good enough for a main event right now, just because both of them are kind of losing a little bit of momentum in their career. I know Paul Felder might be a bigger name than ever, but still his losses are going to come into play here. I don't think he's a main event of a fight night anymore, so I'd like to see Paul Felder versus Ally Quinter as the co-main event of a fight night. Moving on down the rankings, Kevin Lee also needs an opponent. And another guy coming off a loss that's soon to be entering the lightweight division is Donald Cowboy Cerrone. And I know that people are going to say, you're giving Kevin Lee a softball here. I actually think Donald Cerrone has a really fucking good chance of beating Kevin Lee at lightweight. And I also know that you can't really introduce Donald Cerrone to the lightweight division and not put him against a guy whose name value stacks up to his own in some way. Like, Donald Cerrone can't be on the prelims. And there's certain names outside the rankings at lightweight that are on the prelims. You know what I mean? And he can't be on the opener of the main card of the fight night. You kind of have to make the most of Donald Cerrone's name in the co-main event of a fight night. I feel like Kevin Lee versus Donald Cerrone is a great co-main. It's also a great addition. Maybe the headliner of the prelims of a pay-per-view. Not a fight night, obviously, but the headliner of a prelims of a pay-per-view. Donald Cerrone versus Kevin Lee. I think that's the fight that needs to be made next. And I feel like Donald Cerrone has a really underrated chance in that bout as well. It's a great style matchup for him. He's got a dangerous guard off bottom. He's got great cardio. Kevin Lee slows down. Coming off a long layoff as well. I feel like with Donald Cerrone, we're not going to waste his loss, which could potentially happen here and end his career, against some random no-name outside the rankings. You're going to want to give Kevin Lee the momentum of beating a Donald Cerrone if you're going to have Donald Cerrone lose to anyone. Kevin Lee versus Donald Cerrone. Paul Felder versus Ally Quinter. Moving on further down, of course, you've got the Dariush Ferreira winner taking on RDA. Islam Makhachev has already taken on Drew Dober in March, so I guess we'll have to see how that one goes. Gregor Gillespie was in conversation to fight Brad Riddell at one point at 258, and then they eventually wanted to make it at 259. I don't even know what ended up happening with that situation, but apparently they're not going to be fighting. So I feel like Brad Riddell versus Gregor Gillespie is an amazing fight to make. It's already been kind of in the works, and they seem interested in making the bout, so I feel like both of them are on board with making that fight happen. Gregor Gillespie versus Brad Riddell. I know Gregor Gillespie's coming off a loss, but he's been out for so long now. We kind of have to give him to a we kind of have to sacrifice Gregor Gillespie because he's not got the biggest name. He's got a bunch of wins. He's coming off one loss. I think we just need to chuck him back in there with a Brad Riddell, and it's a great matchup for him as well because Mustafayev had success grappling with Brad Riddell, and I feel like Gregor Gillespie could also do that. So I feel like Brad Riddell, if he passes through Gregor Gillespie, shows that he's a bit more of a well-rounded lightweight than we once thought, and can defend a great grappler and still put on his amazing striking display. So Gregor Gillespie versus Brad Riddell. Get Riddell in those rankings right now. He's got some steam behind him. Also, Alexander Hernandez versus Thiago Moises has already been announced, and Arman Tsarukyan versus Nasrat Haqparast is another fight outside the rankings now we are. Arman Tsarukyan versus Nasrat Haqparast, both of them already agreed to it. I like the matchup. Let's make it anyway. They're both young. Don't want to chuck him in there too early. They both need, I feel like, one more win before we start thinking about chucking him into the rankings. Arman Tsarukyan took no damage against Matt Frevola in his last fight. I say let's keep him active, turn him around, maybe on that China card or the Singapore card. UFC 261, Zhang versus Namajunas, I believe it's going to be. Arman Tsarukyan versus Nasrat Haqparast on the prelims, headlining it maybe, or also just somewhere on the prelims. Amazing fight to make. Also, another fight you could make, Rafael Fiziev, another savage rising up at lightweight versus yet another savage at lightweight, Marco Madsen. Not as much savage as the Rafael Fizievs and the Arman Tsarukyans of the world, but I will agree, Marco Madsen is a very dangerous man right now, and I think it's a great style matchup for Fiziev, a grappler. I think it's time to test out Fiziev and Riddell. Can they hang with good grapplers in the division? Obviously in two different spectrums. I feel like Gregor Gillespie is a much better grappler MMA-wise than Marco Madsen, and even out of MMA-wise as well. I think he's a much better wrestler. But Gregor Gillespie versus Brad Riddell, Rafael Fiziev versus Marco Madsen. Two tests for two strikers that we have a lot of momentum behind. Let's see if they can pass with flying colours, and if they win that one, ranked opponents next. Moving on, Renato Moicano. Speaking of Rafael Fiziev, let's go to his victim, Renato Moicano versus Magomed Mustafayev. A guy who victimized Rafael Fiziev. Wow, we've come full circle here. A circle of victim mentality is going on right now. So Renato Moicano versus Magomed Mustafayev should be made next. The trifecta is there. Fiziev versus Madsen. Moicano versus Mustafayev. Both their surnames start with an M. I'm trying to reach here for why I've made the fight, but they're both fucking coming off losses, and they're in the top 30, so they're matched up together. Anyway, moving on. There's no real genius behind those matchups. They're just what you do, innit? Mateusz Gamrot, I feel like, should take on Damir Ismagulov. Where are you, Damir? Where are you? Savage that was going to take over the lightweight division. What happened to you? You were beating everyone, dominating Thiago Moises and guys alike. And now you're gone? Never to be seen from again? Where are you, Damir Ismagulov? Can we start that hashtag, please? I don't even do Twitter, and I'm not even on Twitter, but someone do that for me. Where the fuck are you, Damir Ismagulov? I was very disappointed with your absence. I thought you were going to be something special. Let's do Mateusz Gamrot versus Damir Ismagulov, and let's see what's good. Where is he? What the fuck's going on? Moving on to another fight I want to see made. Vince Piquel versus Joel Alvarez, and also Joe Selecki versus Jarlin Turner. Great matchups to make. I haven't gone through the whole of the unranked section because there's a lot of pooey matchups that could be made, but I'm not going to even give my time to them. But there's a lot of good ones, and I'm looking forward to seeing what's next for the lightweight division. But starting with Poirier Oliveira. Stop all this nonsense money fight talk, okay? We need to establish a division again, otherwise it's going to be absolute shambolic for the next few years. Can we get a fucking champ crowned that actually deserves it? Poirier Oliveira for the championship. Gaethje Chandler. Ferguson Hooker. McGregor Diaz free. RDA Ferreira Dariush win it. It makes sense. Makes sense. Goodbye. Thank you for watching. Click that button up there. Like and subscribe. I'll see you later. Toodle pip.